payout policy, like dividends, stock repurchases, but I also work in other areas like merging acquisitions and innovations. I've been teaching actually in our own global MBA program for quite a long time now. So, and all of the colleagues basically that will be involved in this program, all the unit leaders, are people that have extensive experience when it comes to teaching a blended program. For instance, Professor Harish Khurshid, Dr. Julian Jones, and many other people involved in this program. Now, what is a blended program? I'm going to say something a bit more later. But basically, in a blended program, there are essentially two methods that we use to deliver the content of the program. One of them is the more traditional method, so face-to-face contact, and I'm going to explain later how we do that, in particular here in the business school. Another one is somehow more innovative, and it's online, it's purely online. So I can now move on to the next part. Yeah, I think I can now hand over to Catherine actually, so that she can actually say something more about the business school, who we are, what we do here.
Hello, my name is Catherine Howard. I've been at the business school now for 15 years, and I'm really proud to be part of this amazing business school. We're highly ranked business school with a fantastic worldwide reputation. You'll see a few of those on our slides here. So we're part of the prestigious University of Manchester, and was one of the leading ranked universities in the UK. The University of Manchester has produced 25 Nobel Prize winners, which we're obviously very, very proud of. And we're currently ranked in the UK, 6th in the UK, 8th in Europe, and 29th in the world. So we're very, very proud of those rankings, and we also want to obviously better those each year. So AMBS itself has an amazing accounting and finance faculty, and is currently ranked 21st in the QS rankings. And our MBA programme is in the top 10 in UK and Europe. So again, fantastic rankings and great to be part of the business school. We're the largest campus-based business school in the UK. That's with UG, the undergraduate MSc programmes, MBA, executive education, and online blended learning programmes. Within that, we have over 60,000 alumni from over 176 countries, which makes us the most targeted UK university by leading graduate employers. So we're also very proud of our triple accreditation. So that's the UK, Europe, and USA accreditations. And we're 1% of business schools, or part of 1% of business schools globally that enjoys this triple accreditation. We're a truly international business school, and students from all over the world giving you the most exciting learning experience, such as international student bodies. So we have 135 nationalities in our student population, and something I really love about business school. So I hope that you'll become part of that in the future. So I'm going to hand back over to Amedeo, and he's going to talk a little bit further about the program.
Yeah, I would like to explain a little bit what this program is for, because of course we want to make sure the program is suitable for you, and also about the background that is required for this particular program. First of all, this is a program that is somehow a little bit different from the standard MSc in Finance or MSc in Financial Management program that you find elsewhere. In that, this is a program that is particularly useful for people that want to learn some practical techniques and also information that somehow notions that are relevant in your profession. Okay, so basically it's a program which includes many what we call hands-on parts, hands-on tasks, hands-on assignments that would allow you to learn some very useful techniques for your profession. Now, in terms of background, we do not require people that enroll on this program to have knowledge of finance and accounting. And basically, it's a program that requires some skills in terms of being able to deal with some quantitative problems, some quantitative techniques that you can use as a professional to analyze data information from the financial market, from annual reports, financial statements of companies. But again, it's a program designed for people that are comfortable with numbers, with figures, are interested in finance, but at the same time, they are not somehow experts in this area. So we start slow in the program, and slowly the program becomes more and more complex and more advanced. And at the end, basically, we cover pretty much all of the areas of finance that are relevant to finance professionals. So this program could appeal to people that perhaps they want to change their career path, so they want to move into finance, or perhaps they're working already in finance, but somehow they want to learn new skills. They want to improve their knowledge of the financial world, and perhaps by doing so, they can also have in the future some career benefits. As I said, believe me, I mean, this program, because I teach another program, so another MSCs, is quite different from the standard type of MSc. So just to give an example, in my own unit, which I'm going to describe a little bit later, which is called corporate finance, in a standard MSc, you will basically learn a lot about theories, existing literature, which is very important, of course. But basically, you will not learn about some of the questions that the practitioner would have to address on a daily basis. For instance, how do I go about evaluating a firm, evaluating a project, an investment? All of these questions are very, very important in the real world. And basically, in this MSc program, we try to focus more on those questions and perhaps a bit less on the theoretical underpinnings of some of the material that we teach. Now, it is a blended program. It's a 2-year blended program. There is some flexibility within the program. We can talk about this a little bit more later. But basically, ideally, you can finish this program within 2 years. And again, it's a blended program, meaning that on the one hand, you have a content which is delivered online on our platform, Blackboard, but you also have other content that is delivered face-to-face through some workshops. This is a model that has been very, very successful here within the business school, very well received. It's also a model that essentially allows you to go through the program and learn and match the learning outcomes quite smoothly. Okay, you're not basically left alone, abandoned somehow to learn lots of content. We follow you all the way through, and you also have a chance through the workshop, to the face-to-face workshop, to interact with us and also to interact with your colleagues. Also, another important point that I want to highlight is that in this program, we give you access to an extensive set of financial databases. This is quite important because they would allow you essentially, again, to use some of the notions, techniques that we teach during this program to some real cases, to some real companies. So again, what we could do, for instance, we could say, okay, look, today we have learned this particular technique. Go away, collect some information from perhaps the website of a company, or perhaps from one of our databases, and apply some of these techniques. And then, of course, you can get feedback on what you've done. And we try to create also online an interactive environment through which you can interact with your colleagues and also with the tutors. So this is quite important because in finance, having access to information, access to data is critical. Okay, and the business school has probably one of the largest sets of databases, I would say, in the world. There are not many other schools that have such access. So that's quite important. Now, of course, I imagine that you already know a little bit the structure of the program, but I want to go through the structure briefly. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but if you have any questions, just please ask. Now, there are basically 4 semesters. Okay, so the program is a 2-year program, 4 semesters. And essentially, over these 4 semesters, we have 8 units in total, in which there is a face-to-face workshop. Okay, for instance, when we start in September 2020, we have basically 2 units: foundations of accounting, foundations of finance. These are units that again are suitable for people that do not know literally anything about accounting or anything about finance. Okay, so again, we start quite slow, but then we start building the material very, very quickly, because we want you to learn a lot about this topic over these 2 years. So these are foundational units, and given that somehow we want you to start learning quite quickly, the workshops happen essentially at the start of these 2 units. This would also be an opportunity for you to meet with your colleagues, to meet with us, and also there will be an induction during these 2 workshops. Now, we already have the dates for these 2 workshops. So we have workshops both in the UK and in Shanghai. And what happens during a workshop, that's what you may wonder. I mean, this may vary, of course, from unit to unit, but basically what we normally do, we use these workshops to, first of all, allow you to ask questions about some of the material, some of the content of the unit. So we want you to focus on those notions, those parts of the content that you find particularly complex, particularly challenging. So we go over some of the material. We try to cover practically the whole unit, but we try to focus on those parts of the unit that we think are probably more challenging. Importantly, and also pragmatically in a sense, during the workshop, you're also given a task. Perhaps you're given a case study or a problem to work on within a group. And essentially this group-based assignment that you do during the workshop and also immediately afterwards, and normally the submission is just after the workshop of the final assignment. Well, through this assignment, you normally get 50% of the credits for the unit, okay? Now, the other 50% will be basically obtained at the end of the unit, where we'll give you an individual assignment once all of the content for the unit has been delivered. Now, what happens in semester 2? Semester 2 is quite similar to semester 1, but again, semester 2, what we do, we try to deepen your knowledge of finance. So we have 2 units. One is called corporate finance, one is called global financial markets. These are more advanced units, and they are more advanced, especially again when it comes to understanding how the financial market works, and also how companies, corporations basically finance themselves and make investments. So in these 2 units, we have again workshops. This time the workshops are in the middle of each unit, and we already have dates for both the UK Center and the Shanghai Center. Alongside these 2 units, we also have one unit, which is actually a subunit of the overall project that you will undertake at the end of the program. I'm going to say a bit more about the project in a minute, but basically this unit called Data Analysis and Statistical Techniques is a unit through which you are going to learn some statistical techniques that would allow you to apply some of the methods, some of the other techniques that we teach in other units, like in my unit, corporate finance. So essentially, this would allow you to understand how to analyze data, how to make sense of data. This data could be both from the financial market, from other markets, and also from financial statements and similar information. By the way, this data analysis and statistical techniques unit is actually an online unit. Okay, so there is no workshop here involved, but there will be, of course, some online lectures through which, again, you can interact with your tutor and also with your colleagues. There are then other 2 semesters. In the 3rd semester, basically, we do not have the dates yet for the workshop, but again, there will be 2 units, financial statement analysis and international financial management, in which basically, on the one hand, in the case of financial statement analysis, we basically focus a bit more on accounting. So we build up on the foundational course on accounting, and we try to increase your knowledge of financial statements in particular. International financial management, on the other hand, we again build up on what we learn from corporate finance and also foundations of finance. So we try now to focus more on international financial markets, international transactions that especially large multinational companies undertake throughout the world. One example could be if you're managing an international company that operates in 10 different markets, the company will be basically subject to exchange currency fluctuations in 10 different markets. And how do you deal with that? Perhaps you can invest in some instruments that we call derivatives, through which you can deal with this risk. At the same time, we also have quantitative methods for financial management, which is again another unit that will prepare you. It's a purely online unit that will prepare you for the final project in the last semester. In the last semester, actually, here we look at two units now that are somehow more specialist, and perhaps they are not the units that you normally find in an MSc in Financial Management, but they're very beneficial to you. On the one hand, there is a unit, very practical unit, on the world of private equity and venture capital. As you probably know, nowadays, companies raise quite a lot of capital from private equity firms. So this is a world, this is a market that you need to understand very well. And the other one, called the business models and financial strategy, is actually a very interesting unit in which we try to bring everything that we have learned together, and we try to basically have an overall view of the financial strategy of a company. Okay, so perhaps in corporate finance we look at specific transactions, whether or not they should be undertaken by the company. But now we look at the overall financial strategy of the company, perhaps whether the company should grow internally, or whether the company should actually take over another firm. And finally, there is also a group project in which you will work within a group, and you will work on essentially you will prepare a report again on a quantitative problem that you will choose to a certain extent. So there will be some choice for you. So perhaps you could work on a particular market that you want to analyze using some of the statistical techniques we have learned, or you could work on an industry, on a group of companies. So there will be some choice, but again, it will be an interesting and useful, from a practical point of view, project. So again, if you have any questions about this, there will be a chance at the end to ask. So please ask, and we'll try to address it. So again, I think now I can hand over again back to Catherine.
Yeah, I think Amedeo, if you can just talk a little bit more about the blended
part
of the program, and I could talk about the entry requirements, if that's okay.
Yeah, I think the blended part, actually, I was forgetting. The blended part is very important, again, because it's one of the terms that we academics use, but basically I'm not sure whether it's widely known as a terminology. But basically, what is blended learning? It's essentially a blend between the traditional on-campus, face-to-face kind of degree that you probably know very well, in which essentially everything happens face-to-face, and in which there are lectures, so workshops, seminars that are spread over a certain period of time, and a different type of approach, which is the online approach that is quite common nowadays. Now, with blended learning, the main advantage is that you have a bit of both. You learn, of course, online at your own pace, although, of course, there will be still interaction online with us and also with your colleagues. But at the same time, there is an opportunity for you to intensively meet with us, interact with us. And this is something that should not be underestimated, because if you are basically alone at home working on material, perhaps, first of all, you do not have maybe some deadlines that will push you to work throughout the material, throughout the period over which the unit develops. So you may fall behind. You may also at a certain point be somehow, perhaps you're not incentivized enough to follow the unit, and also the dropout rate, that's what we know, in an online program can be quite large. So there are quite a lot of students that ultimately drop out in a purely online program. Whereas dropout rates for blended programs like the ones we offer here are quite low. Because again, if you think of it, you have the workshop where you work with your colleagues, and that will count for 50% of your marks, and then you have a final assignment in which again you work on an individual assignment in which that counts for 50%. Okay, so our experience is that this type of program is better than a purely online program, and at the same time it allows you to learn something while working. So I think I can now.
Yeah, so going on from that, just to give you an idea, we suggest 15 hours per week in study. So that is pretty manageable, we hope, to do alongside your work. And this is a 2-year course. As Amedeo mentioned before, there is some flexibility to that. So we do advertise online as it's 2 to 5 years. Again, we want you to enjoy the program and to get as much out of the program as possible. So if you feel like you are struggling, there is some flexibility in that. That's the right way of explaining that. So just briefly go through our entry requirements. We are looking for a bachelor's degree. So that's a 2-1 or above, or the equivalent experience. Also, obviously, we're looking at overseas degrees, and we know the equivalent to our 2-1 bachelor's degree. You are required to show some quantitative math skills as well alongside that, but we're not looking for specific degrees in those areas. So it is I would say, a conversion program, isn't it, really? But we do need some of skills in a bachelor's degree to show those quantitative skills. Our fees are £19,500, which are paid in 4 instalments with a £2,000 deposit, and that's to be paid when your offer deadline is. So you get your offer, you get about 4 weeks to accept or decline your offer, and that's when you have to pay your £2,000 deposit. So I'll just go through the instalments just to give you an idea. As I said, there are 4 instalments: first, second, third, and fourth semester, and those are kind of equally £3,875 for the first instalment, and the other 3 instalments are £4,875. Just to give you an idea of how you can spread those costs as well. We do have some early application discounts as well. So our first early application deadline is Monday, the 3rd of February 2020, and that's a 12.5% tuition fee discount. That's equivalent to £2,437.50. And we do have a second early application deadline as well, which is Monday, 20th of April 2020, and that is 10% tuition fee discount. So to be eligible for the early application discount, you'll need to submit your application on or before the application deadline of that early application deadline. And if you're offered a place, you have to accept, pay your deposit by the deadline on your offer letter. So that's normally, as I said, about 4 weeks from your offer. We do have a few scholarships as well. So we offer the following scholarships for the UK Centre, from UK Centre. So we have a Women in Finance scholarship. We have 2 of those, and those total to £4,000 each. And we also have Professional Services scholarships. Again, 2 of those at £4,000. And that's pretty much it about the application.
Yeah, so I think I can talk a bit more again about the blending part. Now, again, perhaps I can refer to my own unit, so that because it's a typical unit, which is called corporate finance, I can a little bit say more about how we deliver the content of the unit. So there is basically, again, a blend of methods and devices we use to deliver essentially the content. So the main platform we use is called Blackboard, which is basically an online platform. And on this platform, you will find, for instance, the outline of the unit. You will find a calendar that will guide you the different activities that you will undertake over the unit. Normally, these activities will be undertaken over a 4-month period overall, and we leave you basically approximately 3 to 4 weeks to work in month 5 in your final on your final assignment. And essentially, online, what will you find? You will find basically some notes prepared by us with references to other material that you can read. We normally have also for each unit at least one textbook that will be provided to you online. So basically in our lecture notes we refer to that particular to the sections of that particular textbook that are relevant, that you should read. There will also be some quizzes that you will take in order to self-test your knowledge. Again, this will be prepared by us. We also provide, of course, the answers to those quizzes. There will also be some activities, basically, that we ask you to do. So again, to give an example, in my unit, I could ask you, look, today we learned how to decide whether or not going for a particular investment is a good idea. Now, perhaps think about a company you know well, perhaps your own company where you work, or any other company you know. Think about the information that you would want to collect on a particular investment that is suitable for that company. So if you know that company invests in a certain type of project, then think about the types of information that you want to collect, okay? Or perhaps analyze the annual report of that particular company and come up with a plan as to how improve the way the company finances itself. And of course, you will be able then to get feedback on your work if you're willing to share it with other people, both your tutors and also, especially your colleagues. You will be able to get basically feedback on your work. You will be able to interact with your colleagues. And basically, this will depend on you, of course, to a certain extent. If you want to make it highly interactive, there will be an opportunity for you to interact with other people, get feedback, and learn more about a particular topic. Now, there will also be some online sessions. Normally, we have one online session before the workshop and one online session after the workshop. So this will last for 1 hour. This will be a chance for you to ask questions to your tutor. So they will be live, basically like this webinar, and they will also be recorded and made available to you. As I say, then we will have a workshop. I already described what we do during the workshop. And after going over the content over a 4-month period, there will be at the end some time for you to work on an individual assignment, which will be again something quite related to what you have been doing throughout these 4 months. Okay? It will not be something completely new. So the question is new, but if you work through the content consistently, spending these 15 hours per week, you will basically pass the final assignment without any difficulties. Okay, I can guarantee that, because the final assignment will be basically simply testing what you have been learning over time. There are no exams involved, so there are only assignments, that basically reports that you need to write. Again, there is practice, but there is also theory. So theory is important for us, finance academics, but at the same time we want to teach theory that is relevant in practice. And of course, we know that we have a huge network of peers, alumni. I don't know if you want to say a bit more about that.
I think I mentioned earlier on, how proud we are of our international student body and our network. So part of the Alliance Manchester Business School, part of the University of Manchester, you can build your own professional network. And our global network consists of over 60,000 alumni from 176 countries. So you can imagine the possibilities and the networking opportunities that you will have being part of the Alliance Manchester Business School. And to be able to network with your classmates, that workshops twice a year as well in Manchester or Shanghai. So be able to meet them as well. So it just gives you the opportunity to learn and to share experiences from across the globe, and as I said, in face-to-face workshops as well as online opportunities, and we will be able to give you that as part of the Alliance Manchester Business School. I think that's very, very important in this day and age, isn't it? Just briefly, you do get a dedicated study advisor, of course, to support you on the course, which I think is also very, very important, and just to advise you and give you some help. It is hard to juggle work and studying at the same time, so we are there to help you through that too.
Great, yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean, basically in terms of career ambition as well. In terms of career ambition as well, again, this is a master's that is open to people that either early career or that have quite a lot of experience in their own industry, in their own business. I don't want to limit you in a sense. I mean, this is a master's that is open to anybody who wants to learn more about finance, okay, who perhaps did not have a chance in the past to specialize in finance, perhaps is interested in finance, has some sufficient quantitative skills to deal with some numerical problems that are not that complex, but still require somehow some willingness to engage with certain quantitative material, and perhaps wants to move into finance. And when I say finance, I mean literally there are probably so many industries you can think of. It could be simply you want perhaps to work in a finance role within a corporation, and there are of course many corporations that nowadays are large and attract people that have specializations like in finance. So perhaps you want to become a financial manager in a corporation. That could be a possible outcome for your career. Or maybe you're working in a financial institution, like, I don't know, an investment bank, commercial bank, but perhaps you're not working in a role that currently requires deep knowledge of finance. And you want to actually do that. You want to move in that direction. You want to perhaps become a financial analyst. You want to become somebody who knows really how the financial market works. And this is an opportunity for you to do so, an opportunity for you to learn those skills that will be indeed, yes, a stepping stone. Yeah. So you may be working in finance, but somehow you want to know more about finance, about the financial world. You can also think about a career in consulting, because inevitably when it comes to management consulting, of course, finance is a very important part of that. So you want to perhaps work for a firm that helps companies improve, okay, perhaps adopt better strategies, including better financial strategies. So the field is wide open, really. Don't want to limit it in any possible way. And of course, again, networking is extremely important, and we have this fantastic global network here in the business school worldwide. And we have a lot of experience when it comes to blending programs delivered in many different parts of the world. So essentially, we cover pretty much all of the world with our centers for the global MBA program. And going forward, we hope that the same will apply to this particular program.
So if you would like to discuss any application details or any questions about the financial management course, then you're more than welcome to drop me an email or to give me a call on the number below, and I'm more than happy to help you with any questions that you've got. That being said, we do have a few questions at the moment, so if we could kind of have a little talk through those at the moment. So there was a question that's come through from a student that says that she's worried that studying online won't be particularly interactive. Can you provide some reassurance?
Okay, yes. I mean, we really want our units to be highly interactive. And the way we do that is, first of all, we try to create a calendar of activities for you. Okay, we don't want you to basically, okay, you know that there is this content you need to learn before a workshop taking place in 2 months' time, and perhaps you read this content 2 days before the workshop. Okay, that's not the way we want it to be, and it wouldn't be advantageous to any of us. It wouldn't be advantageous to us tutors, to the students on this program, because basically it's not the right way to learn on this program. So we give you a calendar where basically we tell you, okay, this week try to read this part, try perhaps to do some of the quizzes we provide. work on a particular activity that we give you. This could be a small case study on which you need to reflect, or this could be again something like pick a company you're interested in, go away, collect some information on that company from different sources, and then answer a particular question about the company and share your answer with your colleagues. That's very, very important. That's part where it becomes very interactive. We academics, we tutors are going to facilitate the forum where you can actually do this, but of course it's ultimately up to you to interact with us and also to interact with other students. So we give an opportunity, and we really believe that if you do this consistently throughout, you will go through the unit without any difficulties, okay? Because what you do through these activities, interactive activities, is basically what you're supposed to do also in the final assignment, okay? So there are basically opportunities for you to interact.
And it's worth noting as well that there's a study advisor.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you had any maybe non-academic questions, then the study advisor is there for you. So another question that we have, do I need special software to do the course?
Okay, that's a question where, okay, let me think about it. Well, generally not. The answer will be generally the software that you have available on a standard PC will be sufficient, generally. Now, we have basically a quantitative, a couple of quantitative units where essentially you may be advised to use a particular software, but in that case we'll be basically helping you to get the software. So ex ante, it's difficult for me to answer this question, but basically I would say that generally the software that you have available in your standard PC will be sufficient. Now, the reason why it's a bit difficult for me to answer this question completely is because, again, I don't want to limit your work on this program. In the end, you have a final project in which it's up to you to decide what to do. Okay, if you want to use, if you're an expert in a very, very advanced software, not maybe Python, and you want to, and perhaps you want to do a very complex study on how companies deliver certain information to the financial market, why not? You can do it. I mean, ultimately, it's up to you to decide which software to use, but you're not required to buy any expensive and specialist software, that's for sure.
I think we're here to support as well,
yeah.
Always, so we can always help in that way if you have any issues there.
Another question from Mohammed, for any other institution or organisation rather than the one you work for?
Yes, I think, of course, yeah, that's a very important question, actually. So don't be worried about, exposing somehow your institution or having to disclose some private information. That's not something we want. So again, for instance, if I tell you, okay, please go away and work on a company, ultimately it could be your company. If you can perhaps anonymize it, but that might be quite difficult because, of course, your colleagues will know that you're working for a particular company. So if you do not want to share some private information about your company, you can work perhaps on a different company. You can work maybe on a competitor, for instance, and you can collect information on that competitor, which is publicly available. So again, we do not force you to work on any particular company. We focus, admittedly, in some of our units, we focus quite a lot on companies that are what we call the service or industrial companies, but we do not limit you. So it's up to you to decide on which company to work, basically.
A question from Norman. How do you assess the individual's contribution to each of the modules group aspect and final projects group aspect too?
Okay, yeah, so essentially when it comes to the so we can use different techniques actually. Generally, when it comes to the workshop itself, what we generally do, based on my experience, we basically work with people during the workshop, and we try to engage with everybody. So we try to essentially push everybody to contribute and learn by doing so. Just to give an example, for instance, we ask everybody to contribute to the presentation that students normally do at the end of the workshop. When it comes to the final project, what we often do with this kind of project, and that would be quite an important project, of course. So what we normally do with this kind of projects, we actually have a form of peer review. Okay, so basically, first of all, we basically develop a kind of code of conduct that students should follow throughout the project. We also ask students to keep a calendar of the meetings, ask students to keep track of the different tasks that students have carried out, and also at the end we may ask students to basically rate other students' work. Okay, and that would allow us potentially to differentiate between different students in terms of contribution. So that's the way we normally deal with what we can call perhaps free riding sometimes, or the fact that some students work a lot and perhaps others a bit less. So there are some mechanisms that we devise when it comes to group projects.
A specific Manuela, would a student that studied advanced corporate finance with yourself, Amedeo, as a bachelor be enough quantitative skills?
Yes, definitely. I mean, okay. So in terms of admissions, more than enough. Yes. I mean, I would say that essentially, to be really, I mean, the advanced corporate finance I do here actually, together with my colleague Maria Marquica, is basically it's called advanced for a reason, because it's very advanced, but it's advanced in terms of research. Okay, it's more like a research-based unit. The types of units we do in this conversion program are to a certain extent more advanced, but also less advanced. Why? Because on the one hand, they're less advanced in terms of theory, but on the other hand, they're more advanced in terms of practical applications. Okay, so the quantitative skills that are required to enroll in this program are literally quite limited. Okay, so if you can deal with some basic numerical calculations, and you're willing to learn some quantitative techniques that are not very advanced, I would say basic, then you can enroll on this program, definitely. So it's more about whether or not you're willing basically to engage with the material, okay? Because the basic skills that are required are not advanced by any stretch of imagination.
Another case, when is the deadline for the intake application, and is having professional experience an upper hand requirement for the intake?
So I'll ask the first one. So you're asking for the first application deadline. So the first application deadline, so to get the early application discount, is Monday 3rd of February, and that's for the 12.5% tuition fee discount. And the second early application deadline is Monday 20th of April, which is 10%, which is £4,950. And that would be the professional
experience. So is having professional experience an upper hand requirement for the intake?
It adds to your application, certainly. So we'll take that into account, as well as your bachelor's degree. So we do need to see your bachelor's degree, and the work experience would certainly help, and just give some added value to your application as well. I think you would be a student with work experience.
Indeed, yeah.
Yeah, with good work experience.
It will also be very useful also to enjoy the program, because basically we do not strictly require work experience, but essentially if you're already working, of course, again, you may have access to some very interesting information that you want to analyze a bit better in your profession, and the units in this program would allow you to do so, assuming that again you can keep confidentiality basically.
A question from Dave. Can I do further postgraduate studies after finishing this master's, for example, a finance PhD or a DBA?
I suppose this, again, I mean, there are so many programs around the world, so I cannot really generalize. I mean, the DBA, I would say a DBA definitely, because in a sense, the philosophy underlying a DBA is very much coherent with the philosophy underlying the way we built this program. Okay, in the DBA, essentially, you want to do some research, but at the same time, research is of practical nature. Okay, it's not just research that appeals to academics, to the academic world, also perhaps more to the practitioners' world, perhaps also to policymakers. So when it comes to a DBA, definitely. When it comes to a PhD, it's a bit more difficult for me to answer because there are very different types of PhDs, and also in finance we have different fields of finance. Okay, so potentially, given that this is an MSc Financial Management, it's probably much easier for you to get a PhD position in corporate finance rather than in, or even accounting potentially, because there is an accounting component here, rather than in asset pricing or market microstructure that require more mathematical skills that are very advanced in some cases. So it depends on which PhD in finance you are referring to, but potentially, yes, it is possible.
A question about what the on-site workshops involve, and also that they've heard that we have a Bloomberg suite.
Yes, we do actually. It's something that you can use, of course, on campus within our library. As I said, I mean, in terms of databases, probably we are top. I don't know, I don't have a precise figure, but I would say we probably all over the world we could be top 1% even, because you know there are so many universities all over the world. I cannot think of many that are better than us. And of course we have both. We have Thomson databases and also Bloomberg databases, and many others, like we have Capital IQ, and you will be able to use them. Most of them online, some of them, of course, on campus only. And in terms of the workshop, the way in which the workshop is structured may vary from unit to unit, but normally the workshop has three main purposes. One purpose is for us tutors to let you know more precisely which topics are really important, which topics we believe you should learn particularly well, because they're important both in the short term for the unit and also in the long term for your own career. So we cover generally some material over the workshop, but basically we also want you to interact with us and to let us know what you find hard, what you want us to focus on more. So we want to make the workshops interactive. It shouldn't be like we talk and you listen. It should be like we talk and you talk too. So together we interact. And of course, around half of the workshop will be normally dedicated also to this group-based assignment. And again, this could vary from unit to unit. So in my unit, for instance, it could be a case study that I prepare myself, which is very much suited to the type of material that you covered over the unit. And you need to work on this case study independently within groups, and you need to come up basically with a solution. So should a company do this or not do this? Okay, so these are basically the three main activities that take place during the workshop, and of course the fourth one is the networking side, which is very important too.
Another question: do you have any employer links?
Huge amount. I can't talk about our careers enough. We have our own careers at the Alliance Manchester Business School, plus you'll have access to the careers team at the University of Manchester. I presume that still counts as well on the blended learning programmes. So yes, huge links. We are one of the top graduates, you know, for universities to attract the most employers to our graduates in the UK at the moment, so we're very proud of that. So yes, an answer to that, yes, absolutely.
And a question specifically about the professional services scholarship, how and who would qualify for it?
The scholarships are very new to me, so I don't know, have you discussed scholarships with Helen at all? Something we might have to go back to, if that's okay, with the person answering the question. Yes, but I don't want to answer the question incorrectly, so if you want to email Katie,
yes, I'll get
to answer those questions. Yes, apologies for not being able to elaborate any more on that.
And one question from a student that wants to double check that there are no exams on the course.
No, there are no exams. No, there are no exams, so there are only assignments. Basically, this will be again reports. somehow with a sort of what I can say practical kind of bias. So again, there would be, you would have to answer basically a certain set of numerical questions on, again, a company or a case study generally.
Perfect. And I think that's all the questions that we have. If anyone has any further questions, then they're more than welcome to send them through to the studyonline@manchester.ac.uk email, and I'll be more than happy to answer those for you. If not, we can always organise a Skype conversation with myself, and if you'd like to speak to Amedeo, I'm sure we could organise something for that as well. But thank you very much for listening today, and I hope to speak to you in the future. Thank you.
Thanks.